I've got a story today around a very unusual figure who used to live in New Zealand called Captain James Hayter Jackson. And James Jackson lived here 1829 when he first arrived in New Zealand, and he was born 1800 in London in England, came to New Zealand to do whaling, and he was quite a character. So this is the story of Captain James Hayter Jackson. Captain Jimmy Jackson, a remarkable whaling character in the early days, was in 1842 described as all florid fatness, jollity and juice. Born in Putney, London, 1800, he came to Australia as a mate of the whale ship Elizabeth in 1828. The following year he came to New Zealand as a master of the trading brig B. A seaman of big build, 1.87 metres tall, weighing 121 kilos, Jackson is reputed to have circumnavigated the South Island in an open sailing boat. At the turn of the century, Mr. T. Lindsay Buick wrote, Jackson was a tremendous talker and held opinions upon almost everything under the sun. As well as liberal quotes from Guthrie's Geography, he usually relied on texts from the Holy Scriptures to stagger his opponents, but his use of Scriptures was not less peculiar than his application of prayer, which he sometimes took advantage of to extricate himself in an awkward situation. Such an instance is related of him when he was conducting Reverend Rie around the coast on a pastoral visit to the whaling stations. The wind was not to Jimmy Jackson's liking, and he began to say some very uncomplimentary things about it, but suddenly remembered that the missionary was sitting in the stern of the boat, and immediately assumed a pious air and explained in most fervent tones, God forgive me for swearing. And then, casting a knowing look at the reverend gentleman, he roguishly remarked, You see, Mr. Rio, I wipes off as I go along. Jackson apparently kept a dictionary in his bedroom and consulted it whenever he got a chance. He was also passionately fond of playing draughts. Dr. Ernst Diefenbach said in 1839, Jimmy Jackson employed 20 Maoris in his whaling business. They built 2 large houses for the white men and slept at night, crowded about the fireplace. When Edward Jerningham Wakefield arrived at Te Awaiti in the Marlborough Sounds in 1839, a whaling township comprised 3 shore stations, one under the direction of Jackson, one run by Dickie Barrett and another by Joseph Toms. Jimmy Jackson was said to be the first man to build a boat in New Zealand of sufficient size to trade with Australia, and was probably the first man to import cattle to New Zealand. He gave shelter to Te Raparaha after Wairau massacre, and accompanied Wakefield in the exploration of Pelorus. When Jimmy Jackson died in 1877 at Jackson's Bay in the Marlborough Sounds, his wife Eliza Jackson is said to have burned all his private possessions. She apparently thought he had died of a contagious disease. He is no good to me alive, and is a sight less use to me dead, she was alleged to have remarked. The inscription on his headstone reads, Sacred to the memory of James Jackson, who departed life August the 2nd, 1877, aged 77. The old man sleeps in his narrow bed. His trials on earth are over. The wind may shriek overhead, the mountain torrent roar, and he sweetly sleeps through the tempest rave, and the storm cloud gather over Grandpa's grave. So that was the story of Captain James Hayter Jackson, who lived at Te Awaiti, or Arapawa Island, Marlborough, in New Zealand. Here he is here. And Very interesting character. So he is said to have been a trader and a whaler and a shipbuilder in Marlborough Sounds, New Zealand. So if you would like to know some more about that character, you can ask me and I'll help you find out more.